In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about how to play chords correctly and how to switch between them. So what do I mean when I say playing chords correctly? Well, what I mean is that every string of the chord is ringing out clearly. So for example, if I was going to play a C chord, when all the notes are played together, it sounds like this. But what I would then do is just check every individual string of that chord. So with a C chord, there are 5 strings played, the A, D, G, B and high E strings, and I would check each of those strings. And as you could actually hear there, I did just make a mistake. So my high E string kind of had this weird buzzy sound, and that's because my index finger of the C chord on the first fret of the B string was slightly too low, so it caused a buzzing sound. That's much better. Now, this is something that happens progressively over time. What you'll find is that when you're learning chords in the beginning, some of them you'll have all of the notes and some of them you won't have all of the notes. And it's not something to actually beat yourself up over and try to get it perfect every single time. This is more something to just be aware of as you're playing it, so that over time you can work towards slightly clearer chords. And that will apply to any chord you ever learn. And just trust me when I say, it becomes more and more natural the more you play. So the other thing is switching between the chords. What can we do to switch between the chords? Well, there are a couple of exercises for this if you're struggling with chord changes. So for example, if I've got a chord progression that goes from G to D to C, and then back to D again. One exercise that I can do is I can grab a metronome and set it to 60 beats per minute. Okay, so I've got my phone here with a metronome app. It doesn't matter which metronome app you use. In fact, if you type in Google metronome into Google, one will come up. Set it to 60 beats per minute and hit the play button and it will sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you want to keep that count of 1 to 4 in your head. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and every time you get back to 1, you change chord. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can repeat that as many times as necessary. Perhaps you have a 5-minute section in your practice routine which is focused on chord changes. It might not be those chords. This can apply to any chords that have ever existed. Okay, so that's just one thing that you can do. We don't need the metronome for the next part. In fact, we don't even need the fretting hand for the next part, so we can turn the volume of our guitars down. Can't do that if you've got an acoustic, I understand. And what we can do is turn it into a visual exercise. So we can take that same chord progression and we can just look at our hand. Now be careful, if you've watched the video on posture, you'll know that guitarists are prone to kind of slumping over like this. But we want to try and keep our back in good condition. So we could go from G to D, and what we're doing is we're just using it as a visual exercise. And you could include the metronome with this as well, actually. You could kind of combine the two. But the idea is just to get your fingers, get that muscle memory going and get your fingers to remember the correct positions of whichever chords it is that you're working on. And early on, I would recommend working on no more than 4 chords at a time. Okay, you don't want to be doing like 10 chords in a row or something like that at first, but of course you can progress towards that, and that could be your exercise and that could be your 5 minutes practice eventually. Okay, so that is a little bit about how to play your chords correctly and how to switch between them.